For this presentation, I decided to read Guys Are Waffles, Girls Are Spaghetti by Chad Eastham, Bill Farrell, and Pam Farrell. This is a teen self-help book, and it is Christian-based. However, it does give good examples, and it is not completely reserved when explaining things. It's a book that was published in 2009, and the focus is on gender differences and relationships. I found this book to be easy to read. They gave great examples that anyone could relate to, and it was humorous. This book was cut into 3 different sections. I located biological standpoints, communication, and then the relationship aspect. Starting with biological, there was a lot of focus on the brain and nervous system differences. The first was the corpus callosum. Many of the connections in a typical male brain run between the front and the back of the same side of the brain, whereas in women, the connections are more likely to run from side to side between the left and right hemisphere. This is really important and interesting, as women tend to do better with verbal skills, and women are more able to focus on multiple stimuli or multitasking. This may also have to deal with the left side versus the right side phenomenon, especially with the spatial skills. It is when Chad Eastham was explaining the left side and the right sides of the brain, he used the example of road trips. So when you use the left side of the brain, it's a more geometrical approach, so reading a map, which we see a lot of guys doing. And then there's the right side of the brain, which is the more creative thinking side, such as asking for directions, which is something that we see women do more often than men. The other nervous system difference that him pointed out was the paralimbic region, specifically when it came to men and hunger and emotions. This was really interesting because I thought everybody changes when they get hungry, but it is found that within the paralimbic region, that emotional state is aroused because the males are hungry. I thought this was humorous until the author gave another example of the Snickers commercials when they're saying the guys aren't acting like themselves, they must be hungry, eat a Snickers. The guy eats the Snickers and he turns back to normal. Coincidence? I don't really think there is. The next that I came across was anger. Chad Eastham described anger as something that is normal and in most situations healthy, specifically when it is in self-defense. He also broke down anger between men and women, such as men tend to get more angry when the situation is chaotic or could turn into be something physical. So his example was when a fight was inevitable, a male will more likely get angry. For women, we get a little more angry when the situation is uncontrollable, when we cannot control that situation. The next biological difference that was discussed was stressful situations, and to ease into that conversation, the authors used the example of women are spaghetti and guys are waffles. When he says women are spaghetti, he means that the way that we think is like noodles. Noodles, you can just pile them on the plate. They run together and you can't follow the beginning of one noodle to the end. It gets mixed up into something else. This is one way that women tend to are able to bounce from topic to topic. Men are like waffles. They like to think in boxes, and that's how their thought patterns are. That's why they tend to focus on one thing and one thing alone, because it's in that one box. With social stress, females generally cannot participate in any social or societal activities like males do. This tends to have a negative impact, a negative effect upon many of their personal aspects, such as social acceptance and interaction. This is very clearly represented in this book. The authors present the information with social stress that women strive to get that acceptance from everyone around them, whereas men try to get respect from their peers. He also gave a couple of examples or advice to help one gender understand the other. So first, he gave advice to men saying women connect things, which is why they randomly change topics during conversation. For women, he gave the advice that actions that men do that women would consider as silly are the way that men try and find their place within any social group. Next, Chad Eastham went to communication. He did say a couple of interesting things that I thought were very relatable, and it made a lot of common sense. The first was body language is the first language. When you walk into a room, even if you don't speak to someone, you can notice how they're sitting. If they are crossing their legs, putting off a no-go sign, if they're smiling a lot, if their eyes are open, closed, eye contact, those sort of things. The other one was the more your mind, mouth, and body say the same thing, the better the outcome will be. That is really interesting when it comes to women and body language. Women's affect and nonverbal expressions are generally encoded better, meaning their anxiety and uncertainty may have been detected more easily or reliably. Within that study that I just quoted, it was women tend to exhibit their anxiety more, so the constantly touching the ear, fidgeting, things such as that. When they looked at men, they saw that it was a little more harder to read the anxiety that they were displaying. When nonverbal then goes to verbal conversation, the women tend to talk more so they can make connections, and it is something that is pleasurable for women to do. There are several different communication styles. There are 5 of them, and they generally have ulterior motives or different responses that you may see. So when somebody talks judgmental or their communication style is judgmental, they tend to come off as harsh. When the person is compassionate, they will really understand what you're going through. Manipulative, there's always an ulterior motive to what they're saying. If the communication style is heart-centered, it's focused on the feelings. And if the communication style is insecure, there will be a lot of put-downs, making that other person feel like they don't matter or uncomfortable, things such as that. And finally, he touched up on relationships and dating. There were several different categories that he put women in for dating or even for men and dating. The first was the rebel type, which when you're a teenager, you tend to want to go against what your parents say. So I guess this could work for both males and females, going after that bad boy or bad girl type. There was the replacing the dad dater, which sounds so horrible, but it's either finding someone who has the same characteristics as your dad, which is what women tend to do, or replacing the dad that ran out on them when they were younger. There's the serial dater, which isn't as gruesome or deadly as it sounds. It's when you jump from relationship to relationship. You're always in a relationship. Next is the sexual abusers. That's just, we all know what that is. Don't go there. And then the missionary daters is what the authors explained to be as trying to put your beliefs onto someone. So if you're atheist and you're dating someone who is very religious, trying to put that view of God does not exist into that other person's mind, a missionary dater. After Eastham explained the different types of dating, he also said dating should be easy. The other person should not have to feel like they owe anything to the other one. So I relayed that to what I learned in a speech class my freshman year, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Keep dating simple. It's not meant to be anything hard. Next, Chad went on to different things that guys and girls can do to make the relationship fail. And I kind of broke these down into a couple of categories that were more easy to understand. So for women, coercive and filling the gap related to things such as changing the guy, trying to get them to love you, only saying yes to things, constantly having the boyfriends, and things such as that. For guys, it was egocentrism and dependency. These examples were being the whiny guy, being macho, clingy, obsessed, acting superior, being the player. And these I really thought of set standards that Disney movies kind of forced upon us as we were growing up. I found a really interesting article that looked at the different characteristics of Disney princes and Disney princesses and how they've changed throughout the years. They had it set up where there was an early, middle, and modern movie era, and he put it correctly when he said traditional gender roles are moving towards non-traditional. And what he means by that is the early movies such as Snow White, you can see the Snow White being submissive and the prince as strong, he's not afraid of anything, and so forth. As they move on, you can see in Beauty and the Beast and Pocahontas that the women are still nurturing, but they're becoming braver. They're not showing as much fear as the man or the prince, whereas the princes are still exhibiting the same behaviors as they have in the past. When you move along to more modern movies such as Tangled or Brave, you really see the princess as someone who is brave. They are not as submissive as they used to be. They are the ones who are leading the movie, whereas the prince or the men, they're not leading the movie. They are becoming a little more emotional. My main thought was in Tangled when Flynn Rider is freaking out because he's going to die. He's not showing bravery there, he's showing emotion there. And I thought that this was really interesting to relate to this book. Overall, this book was a really great read, and I do recommend it for everyone else to read. And I hope that you guys have some pretty great things to say about this.